Hello, my name is Brian Burnham. This is Module 1, Self-Introduction, as well as the three forms of government and how they affect education. I am sitting in the coach's office at the school that I teach at, so hopefully the background stuff doesn't distract anybody. I teach at Summit High School. I'm a Transition 1 teacher. Summit is located in Spring Hill, Tennessee, which is about 25 miles south of Nashville. My background, I have a bachelor's in special education, mild to moderate focused disabilities. I graduated in 2003 from Middle Tennessee State University. I'm also certified in driver's ed and personal finance. I am currently in my 17th year of teaching. I've taught at four schools, all here in Tennessee. One semester was spent at an elementary school, called Community Elementary. It's basically was just a spot filler because I graduated midterm. So I did one semester in the spring teaching resource, what we call resource back then, and it was a pull-out math and English program. Then I moved on to Blackman High School where I was already coaching while I was in college football. I was there for 5 years. I taught resource math and English for the first year, and then No Child Left Behind went into effect, and we went full inclusion. From there, I was in the Algebra 1 classroom along with geometry, world history, U.S. history, and physical science. I moved on from Blackman to Siegel High School for 5 years, which is also there in Rutherford County, about 25 miles, I think, east of Nashville. I did CDC, which is functional living or life skills, depending on where you're from. And then from there, I've moved to Summit High School, which is where I currently am, and I've been here for the past 7 years. First year, I taught inclusion as well, and you can see Algebra 2 world history there. And then the past 6 years, I've been teaching Transition 1, which, as I said, is also called life skills or functional living. Just depends on where you're from in this area that it's called that. There's a picture of me coaching on the sideline. I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing. I guess I'm stroking my beard a little bit, but it's kind of a weird picture. But just shows you what I do besides teaching. And then the four children underneath are my nieces and nephew. That's from left to right. That is Kennedy, Everest. They named him Everest because he was born 4 months premature and completely destroyed the idea of him not making it. Climbed a mountain to survive, so they named him Everest. My niece Rosie, or his Everest's little big sister, and then Kennedy's sister Harper. The two on the ends, left and right ends, are my brother's children, and the two in the middle are my sister's kids. And then this past year, we were fortunate enough to win the Class 5A Tennessee State Championship. So that's a picture of that trophy, just to kind of give you a little background information on myself. I teach at Summit High School currently. Our enrollment is around 1,620 students. I think it's actually increased even since the fall semester started. I think we're up around 1445 or something like that. You can see the percentages there. We are predominantly white. Our Hispanic population is higher than our African American population, which I don't know if that's common everywhere, but it is common around here. And then we have 5% that makes up those other demographics: Asian, Indian, Native American, Indian being India, Pakistani, those individuals. And then we have an 18.5 student to teacher ratio. That used to be around 17, but our numbers have increased. And the budget has allowed us to hire a few more teachers, but not enough to keep up with the growth. So that number has gone up a little bit, but it's still relatively low when you look at it compared to some of the metro numbers and then other major cities around the country. 12.5% of our student population is free and reduced lunch recipients. And then Summit High School is ranked 25th out of 342 Tennessee high schools. So we're not the upper echelon best of the best, but we are. The district as a whole is pretty solid, and we represent the district pretty consistently. Quote from Albert Einstein, just to separate my intro from the information from the modules. Education is what remains after one has forgotten everything he learned in school. I just think that's a great quote, and we teach these kids and they learn as much as they can in the 12 years that we have them, 13 with kindergarten. But then their education never ceases after that. They're continuing to learn, as we all are. So I just love that quote. Three levels of government and education. Obviously, just like everybody else has talked about in their presentations, we have local, state, and federal. Local government would be our county level governments funded through county tax dollars typically. Makes up about half of the total educational budget. Really, ours is about 58%, I think, give or take, somewhere in there, 56, something like that. State monies are about half of the budget. Those come from state lotteries, other taxes and fees, income taxes if you have them, casino fees. We don't have casinos in Tennessee, but I know they're applicable other places, Mississippi being one just to the south of us. And then Tennessee was mentioned as one of two states, I think Georgia was the other one, that uses the lottery funds for post-secondary education incentives, not money for elementary, middle, and high school, K-12. So we use it as an incentive for higher achievement and keeping kids at the local universities, state-funded universities here, University of Tennessee, UT Chattanooga, UT Martin, Tennessee State University, MTSU, where I went, Columbia State, which is a local community college, and then there's a few smattering of others outside of Middle Tennessee. And then federal consists of only about 8% of the total educational budget. Tennessee, it's actually around 5%. We don't receive as much federal funding. We do have Race to the Top funds and Title I, Title IX, some of all those programs that we'll talk about here shortly. But the amount of money being accepted from the federal government is not as high as it is in other states. All right, the roles of each level, the local level, it's funded by taxpayers, typically property taxes. The percentage of sales tax, and the reason I included that one is because Williamson County has a 0.5% higher sales tax rate than the state, which is, I think, 0.925. And the county in Williamson County where I teach, it's 0.975. So they make extra revenue off of sales tax. Each district has a school board. Those are elected positions. Their job is to determine curriculum, approve personnel hires, vote on budget concerns and approvals, and also develop and administer policy and procedures within the local district, which they will predicate those policies off of state recommendations, which are listed here. Developing standards. We are a member of the Common Core community in the United States. The United States Common Core, I think there's 44 states. We are one of those 44. State governments exercise their primary accountability and oversight for government-run schools. The state is in charge of certification of their teachers, accreditation, and policy, followed by the local districts. All of the federal laws that are in place, the state is in charge of making sure those are followed. Brown versus Board of Education and all of the stuff, legislation, IDEA and ESSA and all the stuff that was put into place anywhere from 1860 through 1997, and then for the IDEA, and then all of the updates that they have done even up till 2016, I believe, when they updated, or 2017 when No Child Left Behind was changed to Every Student Succeeds. The federal level, it's the smallest portion of education budget. We talked about it being about 8%. Tennessee is around 5%. 10th Amendment to the Constitution is where states were given power that was not listed in the Constitution. Education fell under that category. So most of the educational decisions are made at the state level. Their federal government is also responsible for legislation. They have developed the things that are listed below: FERPA, ESEA, which is the Elementary and Secondary Act of 1965, Title I, Title IX, For Title I is a literacy act, along with Title IX being the recommendation for sports, female, and participation for females to get equal funding. IDEA, and then the Higher Education Act. They also promote student achievement and preparation for global competitiveness by fostering educational excellence and ensuring equal access. Because as we know, that wasn't always the case. So who's ultimately in charge? Well, the federal government transfers most of their powers to the state and local governments. We talked about that previously. At the local level, Williamson County is about 55% of the budget. We have a superintendent. His name is Jason Golden. And then there's a school board that are elected positions. They serve 4-year terms, but they're not all elected at the same time. So it's kind of a rotating annual election. Maybe every 2 years, another one gets replaced. The state level, approximately 42% of the budget. Our executive director is of schools is named Dr. Sarah Hayburn Morrison. She's been in the position since 2015, I believe. And then there's a board of directors, kind of like a school board, but directors that she has to answer to, and then they are the ones that implement and come up with policies, and they'll evaluate superintendents and then on down the line, which I'll talk about shortly. And then the federal government, the national average is about 8% of the budget, but it's only around 3% in Tennessee. It's actually 3% in Williamson County, 5% in Tennessee. The current Secretary of Education is Phil Rosenfeld. He's serving in acting capacity while the Senate reviews President Biden's nomination of Miguel Cardona. Former Secretary Betsy DeVos resigned on January 8th, 2021. The influence of the components on the standard that we learned about in this module. 6.1 is to evaluate, develop, and implement management, communication, technology, school-level governments and operations systems that support each student's learning needs and promote the mission and vision of the school. That takes place at the local level, in my opinion, most. They affect personnel decisions, curriculum, technology that's used in different areas based on geographic location. Not every county has access to great internet. That's one of the things that's being worked on in our county, or in our state, because you've got the mountain areas of East Tennessee where a lot of rural locations up there, and so internet is not as powerful. So those are the types of things that are done at the local level. Component 2, evaluate, develop, and advocate for a data-informed and equitable resourcing plan that supports school improvement and student development. The state develops plans and supports that are based on data from school performances, standardized testing using Common Core standards. Also, our teachers are evaluated using the TEAM model. All of these factors are counted towards a state's accreditation and race to the top funds. Executive director and the state board evaluate superintendents. The superintendents and county boards evaluate the principals. Principals evaluate teachers, and then teachers evaluate any TAs that they have. I have 4 TAs that work with me in my special needs classroom. And then component 6.3, reflectively evaluate, communicate about, and implement laws, rights, and policies to promote student and adult success and well-being. I think that's the federal level majoritively, because they're responsible for creating laws, rights, policies, and regulations to ensure that all teachers have access to all teachers and students have access to free, appropriate public education or equivalent charter and private representation. What does it all mean? All 3 levels of government must work together to provide educational success. Even though the percentages are unequal in terms of budget contribution, each level plays a major role in providing what students and teachers need to be successful. At the federal level, they make policies, regulations, and laws. These must be followed to receive federal funding, which, as we've said multiple times, is around 8% of the budget. At the state level, they oversee government-operated schools. Schools must follow state guidelines to keep accreditation and funding, and then local day-to-day operations and decision-making are done at the county level. Here's my correlation statements. I'm going to rush through them because I'm about out of time, and there's my references.